All right, welcome back to what should be the last part of this scenario 4, penny packets. We are on the beginning of turn 7. I'm going to start with the German tally phase. So we have these German fighters currently in a dogfight, so they are all tied up, and these German fighters are tied up in a dogfight. The only available fighter is this flight, and they have just finished combat with these hurricanes that broke. So the hurricanes are broken and has a tally currently on them, but they are going to form up as an escort. They used to be an escort. They became a sweep mission when they tallied. They are going to try to go back to an escort to try to thwart these Spitfires that are kind of lined up to attack the bombers unopposed. So these 109s are going to form back up as escorts. So it doesn't really matter at this point what we do. I guess it does. In order to form back up as an escort, they cannot have a tally, and they flip back to an escort mission during the admin phase. So if we want to get them with an escort marker this admin phase, we're going to have to get rid of the tally. So they are going to drop their tally in the tally phase. And that's all for the German tallies. Let's go to the British. These guys are broken. Dogfight, dogfight. These guys are going to try to tally. So they're going to aim for this front bomber here. So 1d6. Let's see if they can successfully tally. They roll a 5. They get +2 for the bombers being a part of a large formation, +1 because they are on a radio net with ground control. So they successfully tally. So we're going to take B's vector and flip it and put it on S. All right. So let's go ahead and go to the movement phase. First to move, according to the order of movement, are escorts. Dogfights. We do have 2 dogfights, so let's roll to see how they move. We'll start with this one right here. We're going to roll 1 to 3. The raider gets to move it. 4, 5, or 6. The defenders get to move it. So it is a 2. So the raiders get to choose. They are going to pull these guys down and away from the bombers. So they're going to pull the dogfight down to here. Dogfights can move 1 square or stay in the same square, but they cannot climb. They can either stay level or dive down 1 level. So they could have moved here, 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 or stayed there. So that by pulling them down here, the fighters are hoping that if they indeed break after this combat, maybe it'll take a while for the British to get back up. It won't be as ideal for them to attack the bombers. So that's their movement. Both these guys are marked with a dive marker, which I'll just put one right there. 2, just to show that they're both diving. This dogfight, let's roll to see who gets to move it. The defenders get to move it. They want to stay on level with the bombers, so these defenders are going to pull the dogfight over here to stay with the bombers as best as possible. They are no longer diving, so we'll take off their dive markers, but we'll keep the tallies here. All right, next to move our escorts. We don't have any at this point. These guys want to become escorts, but that won't happen until the admin phase. So now we're going to move in initiative order. So that's going to be lowest to highest. So these guys, these broken hurricanes, they have to spend all their movement points moving towards their side of the map. So they're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And really at this point, the Germans don't really care what they do. So we can just go ahead and remove them at this point. All right. Next to move would be this guy. He doesn't have a tally. He is a sweep. So we're going to use his option to form up again, and that's here on the sweep rules. Typically, they just move forward 2 spaces, but when they become alerted, when they are alerted, they can form up. So we are going to, the rules for that are over here, 9.222. An escort on a sweep machine can announce that it is forming up as a bombing escort. It selects a destination square that meets the criteria for setting up as an escort, then flies the shortest route to that square. Okay, so, oh, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. We should have moved the bombers first. My bad. They move before. So 1, 2, that's going to trigger this guy. We'll get to him in a minute. Let's go ahead and move these guys, though, just to do that. All right, now this guy's triggered. So he could reach them this turn if he dives in from the front. He is going to try to set up for a more optimal attack here. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3, and just kind of point himself down like this. Not that it really matters. He doesn't have a climb marker. Okay, that's his movement. Next to move is going to be this guy. He's going to try to form up as an escort. So he is going to choose, if he's going to successfully form up, he needs to get somewhere that counts. So it would have to be somewhere in here, up to 3 above and up to 3 behind these rear bombers. So he's going to try to make it to this square as and form up as an escort. So he's going to spend 1, 2, and then 3. He's marked with a climb. All right, now, probably the British player should have noticed that these guys were going to try to form up as an escort and maybe gone for the head-on attack just to at least get one attack in. But we're going to show you the power, hopefully the effect of escorts here and what they can do. So let's now go to the combat phase. All right, in combat, we have 2 combats to resolve. This one and these 2 dogfights. Let's start with this one. We have got Spitfire A and this flight P. All right, so first off, who is the attacker? Now, the Germans chose to go into a dogfight to tap the Spitfires, but it's going to hurt them because the Spitfires have a really good turn rating. So the turn rating of a Spitfire is 6. The 109 is a 5. So the Spitfires get to be the attacker in the dogfight. So their turn is 6. They are undisrupted, so they're just a straight up 6. The 109s are veteran, so +1 for them, but -1 because they are a flight. So it is going to be 6 versus 5. So +1, -1. So let's roll for the British, the attackers, on the +1 column. Oh, and I guess I should say at this point, this is an advanced rule, but I think it's a good one. It gives some good strategy choices for the defender in a combat, and it's called evasion. These are advanced rules, but I really think there's not a whole lot of extra rules with these, so I always play with them and recommend people just to get right into them as soon as possible. So with evasion, if the defender has a speed rating that is equal to or greater than the attacker, they can evade and basically just cause a -1 roll to both the attacker and defender. So the Germans are already at a disadvantage, so they're just going to declare evasion because their speed equals the Spitfire speed rating. So they are going to declare evasion. Now, if they were unalerted or being bounced, they could not declare evasion, but they are in a dogfight, so they are alerted and they have a tally on the enemy, so they are going to declare evasion. So let's roll for the British attackers on the +1 column. They roll a 7 and a -1 for evasion is a 6. 6 on the +1 column is a hit, so they still managed to get a hit. Let's go ahead and roll to see how that hit, what effect it did. They roll a 4 plus 1 for the Spitfire firepower rating of 1. So that's going to be a 5, which is greater than the defense rating of the 109, so that is a loss. All right, so let's put a loss. That's the second loss on that flight, P. Now let's roll for the Germans on the -1 column. They score a 7, and -1 as well because they evaded. So it's a 6, so no hit. Even if they didn't evade, it would still be a miss, so it was worth it. Okay, let's go ahead and roll for cohesion. The British first. They roll an 8, +1 for being the attacker, -1 for having low ammo. So they pass, but they now become depleted. All right, now let's do the Germans. They roll a 3. Okay, that's gonna break them. That's gonna be at least 1 level of disruption, so they are gonna break. Their tally marker should have been down here, but we're gonna go ahead and remove this and their mission marker and mark them as broken. And this dogfight is now over because one side broke. All right, let's go ahead and resolve this combat up here. We have the 109s and Hurricanes. Now, they both have a turn rating of 5 in a dogfight, so either one of them could be the attacker. So we're gonna have to roll on this one. Let's roll. If it's even, we'll have the British be the attacker. If it's even, we'll have the Germans be the attacker if it's odd. All right, so British are the attacker. They have a turn of 5. They are disrupted, so they go down to a 4. But because they are the attacker, they're avoiding that really bad -1 rating for rigid doctrine. So turn of 5, -1 for disrupted is 4. The Germans have a turn of 5, +1 veteran, -1 flight, so 5. So the British are going to roll on would be the -1 column, but because they have edge and the Germans don't, they get +1 to their differential. So they're going to roll on the 0 column. These guys are going to roll on the +1 column. So let's go ahead and roll for the British. They score a 6. 6, no modifiers here. 6 on the 0 column is no hits. Let's roll for the Germans on the +1. They score a 10. Ouch. That's O. Okay, O. All right, so no modifiers there. 2 hits on the +1 column is 2 hits. So let's go ahead and confirm the 2 hits, 1 dice each. And that is going to be 2 kills on the Hurricanes. Not good for the Brits. Okay, now we roll for cohesion. Let's roll for the attackers first, the British. They roll very high. They roll a 12, +1 because they're the attacker, -2 for having 2 losses, and -2 for depleted ammo. That's going to be a net -3, which is still a pass. So amazingly, they take no disruption. These Hurricanes are staying in the fight. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong one down here. They had 4 losses. They already had 2 losses. I put the losses on the wrong squadron. Okay, so 12 +1 attacker, -4 losses, -1 low ammo. So that's a net -4, which is still an 8. So they still pass, though they are still disrupted, and they now have depleted ammo. Okay. So they are likely not going to survive their next cohesion roll. Now, some of you may wonder, can they continue to pass cohesion checks even though they're at low ammo? Well, yes. I mean, if they don't suffer any more losses and keep rolling 12s on their cohesion checks, yes, they would stay in the fight. That's very unlikely, And remember, this is not just bullets. This is everything from the nerves of the pilot to the ability for them to stay in formation and be effective. Inevitably, some pilots lose track of the other pilots in the formation. They end up heading home. So they could theoretically keep fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, especially if they take no losses. That's pretty rare. And if it happens, just view it as very efficient pilots who are firing short bursts and are really able to stick in the fight. All right, now we got to roll for the Germans, their cohesion roll. They roll a 9, +1 for being veteran, -1 because they have a low ammo marker, and that's it. So they pass their cohesion check and now have depleted ammo as well. And that dogfight is going to continue. Both sides are still unbroken. Okay, now we go to the admin phase. This is where N is going to switch their mission marker back to an escort. And they could only do that because they don't have a tally at this point. All right, now we go to turn number 8, tally phase. We're gonna roll for the Germans first. These Spitfires are, no. Someone broke. No, no one broke. Okay, we already got rid of those guys. Okay. So P is broken, so they cannot tally anyone. Now this 109 could try to tally the Spitfires, but they are going to use their influence as an escort to force the Spitfires to be maybe take a less advantageous attack. What I mean is, if these Spitfires attack any of these bombers from above or behind, these guys have a very good chance of reacting and stopping the combat. Or if the Spitfire wants to avoid the escort, he can attack a bomber from head-on. And a head-on combat cannot be reacted against, but it does bring a -2 modifier to the combat roll, so the British could sacrifice good odds in the combat in order to guarantee an attack on the bombers. So the 109s are not going to tally. They're going to try to thwart these guys from making a very advantageous attack. Now let's go to the British. These guys are going to keep their tally as is. Now here's something interesting. Okay, so these Spitfires are now no longer in a dogfight, so they can tally. These 109s are broken, allowing the Spitfire to tally outside of his square. If these 109s were not broken, the Spitfires could only tally what's in their square. Since these guys are broken, they can look elsewhere. They can turn their attention somewhere else. So I'm going to do something, again, unideal for the Germans, just to make a point and show you how this escort thing works. So we're going to have these Spitfires drop their tally and try to tally these 109s. So here we go. We're going to roll 1 die for a tally roll. They roll a 2, which is close, but the sun arc is above, so that is not in the sun. So that is actually a successful tally. +1 because they have ground control. So we're going to go ahead and place their tally marker on N. And now the Germans are thinking, ooh, that was a bad idea. I know what the British are going to do. They're going to force me to not be able to react. These guys are going to keep their tally as is, and let's go ahead and go to the movement phase. So first, to move our dogfights, we have 1 dogfight to move. Let's go ahead and roll to see who gets to move it. It's a 6. The defenders get to move it, so they're going to push this dogfight further along with the bombers. Next to move are the bombers. Oh, I'm sorry, escorts. So this guy's going to move. He's going to go 1, 2 as an escort. And we're running out of room here. We're going to put him right there. Now, this triggers A's movement because he's got a tally on those 109. So he is going to spend 2 movement points to climb up and attack those 109s. Now, at this point, these 109s cannot react if these Spitfires try to attack a bomber. They are considered unavailable per the rules. And that is one of the conditions for reacting. It says if an enemy fighter squadron attempts to move from a square adjacent to a bomber and is tallied into that bomber's square, escorts may react. To react, the escorts must be within 3 squares of the targeted bomber and no more than 1 altitude level below it. Escorts cannot react if they are unavailable. And again, the definition for unavailable is, let's see if I can find that real quick. Unavailable. Yep. Okay, a fighter squadron is available if it is unbroken and does not occupy the same square as an enemy squadron that has tallied it. So because there's an enemy squadron that has tallied that 109 and is in the same square, that 109 is not available. They are unavailable. Okay, now let's move the bombers. So bombers go 1, 2. This is going to trigger Spitfire. He is going to attack from out of the sun. He's going to try to bounce. So he needs to spend 2 movement points. He needs to move 2 squares in the sun immediately before entering the bomber. So all these squares up here are in the sun. So this is 1 square in the sun, 2 squares in the sun, and he successfully dives on the bombers from out of the sun. Now these bombers underneath are going to move. Let's see if I can grab the 109s off of there. That guy's going to move. That guy's going to move. Put these guys back up there. Let's remove. Let's see, this Spitfire climbed. The 109 did not. This 109, he's just going to fly home, and the British don't really care to stop him. They're happy to see him go. Remove that. Okay, so this is our situation going into the combat phase. So again, I hope that illustrated, that worked out pretty nicely to illustrate, one, how escorts form back up, which was a good idea for the Germans because they wanted to try to stop this Spitfire from making this nice out-of-the-sun attack, this bounce. But the British, since they were able to get out of that dogfight and become unengaged, they made a good choice by tallying those new escorts and getting in there with them and stopping them from reacting. All right, this is hopefully going to make for some interesting action here. So let's go ahead and do combat. Let's go ahead and start with these bombers. So the Spitfires, they are going to use their speed rating of 5 plus 1 for diving is 6. And these are the guys that have the expert. So they will hopefully perform well here. So they have a speed rating of 5 plus 1 dive is 6. The bombers have a speed rating of 4 minus 1 because they're carrying bombs. So that drops down to a 3. So it's 3 versus 6. 3 versus 6. So plus 3, minus 3. Let's go ahead and roll for the British first. They roll an 8. They get plus 1 because they have an expert and plus 1 because they bounced. So that is going to be a 10. A 10 on the plus 3 is 3 hits. 3 hits. Let's roll to confirm. There's 2 of the hits. They're going to get plus 1 for the firepower rating of the Spitfire and plus 1 because they have an expert. So that's going to be a plus 2 to each roll, a 6 and a 6, which exceeds the protection rating. So that's 2 Heinkels down. That's Squadron S. 1, 2, and one more hit to confirm. And that's another kill. All right, so wow. Did those Spitfires deliver or what? That's 3 Heinkels out of action. The defenders, the Heinkel gunners, roll in the -3 column, and that is a miss. All right, let's roll for cohesion. First, the attackers. They are going to easily pass their cohesion roll. We mark them with a -1 marker for ammo, and then for the Germans, their cohesion, ooh, but they scored very high. So 10 minus 3 losses is 7. That is a pass for them. So good work by the Spitfires, but those German bomber pilots are doing a good job in keeping their cool and staying in formation. Let's go ahead and do this dogfight. We've got the Hurricanes and the 109s. They have the same turn rating, so it's going to be a toss-up. Who's the attacker? So even British, odd Germans. Okay, so the British again get to be the attackers. So they have a turn of 5. -1 for being disrupted is 4. And the Germans have a 5, +1 veteran, -1 flight. So again, it's 4 versus 5, or -1 +1. 0 though for the British, because again they have the edge rating. So let's roll for the attackers, the British on the 0 column. Hey, they scored 9 on the 0 column. That's 2 hits. So let's roll to confirm those 2 hits. That is a 7 and a 4. We add the firepower, so that is a hit and a straggler on O. O already had a straggler, so that 1 straggler result becomes a loss, and then they get a second loss. So 2 losses on the 109s. Now let's roll for the Germans on the +1 column. They roll a 4. That is no hits. No hits. Now we do cohesion. Let's roll for the British attackers. And they rolled an 8. -4 losses, -2 ammo. That is going to be their demise. So they are going to head for home after finally getting some vengeance and striking down 2 109s. They have earned their right to go home. So that's going to end the dogfight. Let's roll for the Germans. Let's see how their cohesion holds up. That's a 7, -2 losses, -2 ammo, +1 veteran. They're going to break. They get their 1 level of disruption, which breaks them. Okay, now there should be a bomb load on that one. These are bombers. Oh, I'll find another one. Okay, so both sides break. Let's just go ahead and remove them now just to clear up space. I know I'm not really doing that in order, but I am keeping with the spirit of the rules. There would be no point in keeping these guys on the map. All right, let's take their tally markers off. Last combat here is right here. These Spitfires are attacking the 109s. Now, this is not a bounce. The Spitfires are attacking an alerted squadron. So the only way they could bounce an alerted squadron is if the 109s had a tally on someone else, or if the Spitfires attacked from out of the sun. But they're not. They're coming from underneath. Now they're climbing, so their best choice here as the attacker is to go with their turn rating, because they don't get penalized for climbing. The climb marker only affects speed. So turn of 6. They are still undisrupted, so that's just a 6. 109s have a turn of 5, +1 veteran, -1 flight is 5. So 6 versus 5 is +1, -1. Let's roll for the British. Now, again, the Germans here are going to, because their speed is superior at this point, they can choose to evade, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to evade these Spitfires. So here goes the Spitfires on the +1 column. That is a 10, -1 for evasion is a 9. Not enough to avoid 2 hits. So the Spitfires are going to get 2 hits. Let's roll for those. That is a miss. That is a kill. So Spitfires shoot down a 109. That is 109N. And let's roll for the 109s. On the 0 column, they rolled a 7. I'm sorry, on the -1 column. Now this is where their evasion kind of hurt them, because a 7 on the -1 column would have been a hit, but they evaded, so that's a -1 to their roll. So no hits. So that was probably, that was a risk they took. Didn't hurt the British, but it did hurt them. So no hits. Let's roll for cohesion. First the British. They roll a 6, +1 as attacker, -2 ammo. It's going to be a 5, which is 1 level of disruption. So we're going to disrupt A. And they're still at depleted ammo. And let's roll for the Germans. That's going to be a broken. So N is going to break. All right, and again, there's no point in keeping him on here. The Spitfires, they only care about the bombers at this point. So we're going to remove these guys, let them go home. And okay, at this point, we're down to just the bombers. The British have done a big comeback here and have really lessened the lead the Germans had. Let's go to turn number 9. Let's go to the tally phase. Only got the defenders that can tally. We're going to have A place a tally on these rear bombers. Now, at this point, we don't need to roll for tally because they're so close. They get +2 modifier for large formation, so these guys can just have their way, whatever they want to do. The Spitfires are going to keep their tally on these guys. Let's go to the movement phase. So bombers are going to move. So this guy goes 1, 2, triggers his movement. Now, he could just charge in there and attack, but he's going to set himself up for a more advantageous attack here. He's going to go 1, 2, 3. He's climbing. Now, why not just go for a combat immediately? Every combat is precious in that it's going to likely break these guys. So they want to make every combat count. And the best way they can do that is to attack from above and out of the sun. Let's roll these guys forward 2. These guys move forward 2. That triggers his movement. Again, he could just charge in there, but he's going to climb up and get in position for a better attack. All right, next turn. Bombers move, 1, 2. That's going to trigger his movement. He's going to go 1, 2. That's 1 movement point in the sun. He's going to spend a 3rd movement point circling in this square in order to qualify for bounce. And then he dives in. I think I'm doing that right. They did change just recently. Lee updated how the bounce works. Let's see. Out of the sun, yeah. I'll read that rule real quick here. All right. If an attacking squadron enters its target square for air combat, the target squadron qualifies as attacking out of the sun if both these conditions apply. It entered the target square from a square in the sun arc, yes, and it spent at least 2 movement points in the sun arc immediately before entering the target squares. Oh yeah, okay. So it's movement points, not squares. So he spent 1 movement point entering this square, circled for a second in this square, so that's 2 movement points in the sun, and then he entered from out of the sun, so that is a bounce. This guy's going to go 1, 2. He's diving. This guy's going to go 1, 2, and this guy's going to do the same thing. Well, actually, he can't bounce. He's not going to be able to spend 2 movement points in the sun. He can go 1, 2, 3, but he's only got 1 movement point left to dive with if he dives, so he wouldn't be able to qualify for a bounce. So he is just going to dive from behind. Okay, combat. This guy has a speed of 5 plus 1 for diving is 6. And the Germans have 4 minus 1 for carrying bombs is a 3. So again, plus 3 minus 3, it is a bounce. This one is a bounce. Let's roll for the British. That's a 10. Plus 1 bounce, plus 1 expert. Ouch. It's going to be a 12. 12 on the plus 3 is 4. 4 hits. That's incredible. All right, 4 hits. Let's confirm those. Wow, that's 2 kills. Remember, plus 1 for firepower, plus 1 for expert, so that's 2 kills right there. And a miss and a straggler. That's going to go up to a 5. Is a straggler. So another 2 kills on that squadron and a straggler. So that is looking very depleted, that formation. All right, let's roll for the Germans on the minus 3 column. They roll a 9. Minus 1 for being bounced is an 8. No hits. Okay, cohesion. The British cohesion is a 7. Plus 1 attacker, minus 1 for low ammo. They do pass their cohesion, and they now become depleted. Let's roll for the Germans. This is where it's going to hurt. Oh, they roll a 10. Minus 5 losses is a 5. So 10 minus 5 losses is 5, which is no disruption. Unbelievable. Okay, it's got to be frustrating. All right, let's go to these guys over here. They're attacking, but this is not a bounce. Speed of 5 plus 1 for diving is 6. They are disrupted, so it goes back down to a 5. These 111s, speed of 4 minus 1 bombs is 3. So it's 5 versus 3 is plus 2 minus 2. All right, here goes. British, I roll a 10. No modifiers, so a 10 on a plus 2 is 2 hits. Let's roll those confirmation rolls. That's a kill. That's nothing. It's only a plus 1 for firepower. They don't have an expert, and that's below their protection rating. So just 1 loss on that rear bomber. Let's roll for the Germans on the minus 2. That's 8. 8 on minus 2 is a hit. And that is a kill. Spitfire goes down from the Heinkel Gunners. That is on A. All right, now cohesion for the British. That's going to be another level of disruption because they already have 1 loss, 2 ammo, depletion. They're already disrupted, so that's going to break them. Okay, let's roll for the German cohesion. Oh, not as good. That's going to be minus 1 for a loss is 3. That's going to be a disruption level to the bombers. Now the bombers, they cannot get more than 1 level of disruption. Even if they rolled as low as possible, they only can disrupt 1 level. All right, now let's roll. Let's see, we're done with that. These guys can fly home. They're broken. They are broken. All right, now we're on to the next turn. Now these guys are going to fly off the map, so there's no point in him keeping his tally on these bombers. He is going to move his tally marker over here. He can do this because these are not fighters, so he can tally outside of his square. So even if you rolled a 1, he gets plus 2 for large formation. That's an easy tally. So now the movement phase, these guys fly off, these guys fly here, these guys fly here, and this guy, he can't move at all because the bombers moved into his square. He's going to stay there and fight. He did not dive, so that dive marker comes off. Let's go ahead to the combat. The Spitfires are going to avoid the nasty gunners. Well, let's go ahead and show you. Let's risk it. We're going to have them use their turn rating so they can get a 6 versus 4 minus 1 bombs minus 1 disrupted is a 2. So 6 versus 2, that's plus 4 minus 4. The British are going to roll on the plus 4 column. Ugh, not so good. They get +1 for an expert is a 7 on the +4 column, and they do get 2 hits. Let's roll those 2 hits. That is nothing. That is going to be a straggler, +1 for firepower, +1 for expert. And there was no straggler on you, so that's just going to be 1 straggler, no loss. Let's roll for the Germans. Now this is a turn fight, so the Germans are going to get +2 to their defense rating. Yeah, there's the danger of turning against bombers. So 10 +2 for a defense rating, which is 0, except they're turning. It's a turn fight, so that goes up by 2. So that's going to be a 12. On the -4 is 2 hits. And that is a loss, and that's a miss. So 1 loss on Squadron A. B. Let's roll cohesion for the Spitfires. That's a 5, -2 ammo, -1 loss, +1 veteran is going to be a net -2, which is a 3. So that's 2 levels of disruption they break. And then last of all, the cohesion check for the bombers. They easily pass and remain disrupted. Okay, so I kind of sped through that, but we are getting a long video here, but I just wanted to end this thing. Okay, let's tally the end of the scenario. Let's put this out here. So, victory points. The Germans are going to score 6 victory points by default for every undisrupted bomber squadron, which is this guy. This one miraculously made it off without disruption. So that is going to be 12 points between these 2 bombers, and then this one's disrupted, so that's +3 victory points there. So that is 12, 15 points for the Germans from bombers making it off the map. So 15 points, and then we add 1 victory point for each of these guys that was lost. So 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So the final score for the Germans is 23. Now, the British scored a lot of kills, and each of those bombers is worth 2 victory points. So that is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So 17 victory points for the British. What did I say? 12, 15, 23 to 17. That's going to be a net of +6 for the Germans. So that is actually going to be a British victory. So I think that feels right. The British really took down a lot of bombers there, managed to disrupt a squadron, but at a heavy loss. That was a lot of Hurricanes and 2 Spitfires lost. So the bombers got mauled pretty good due to some excellent British pilots there who stuck it out to the end, outlasted the escorts. So I hope this was a good playthrough, example of play for scenario 4. And as you can see, each scenario kind of builds the rule set, also some good strategy choices. And let me know if you have any questions or comments about this playthrough. And if there's anything you'd like clarified or for a future video idea, if you want me to keep doing scenario playthroughs or just a demonstration of a particular rule, post those in the comments. Thanks for watching.